So today we're going through kind of like a system check / warm up to like an upper body day, and then we followed it with some pulls or back and a little bit of chest.
Yeah, so systems check, you know, when it comes to, you know, understanding if your body's ready to perform, a good analogy that's well used is, you know, a pilot doesn't just take off on the runway, right? They've got all these things they got to check before they go full steam ahead and get that 700,000 ton plane in the air, right, or however much it weighs. Is, you know, the human body's going to be the same way. If I'm going to go into a pull day, I'm not going to do a leg day warm up, right? I'm going to do upper body. First thing I'm going to check, scap, shoulder. Let's open up the back a little bit. Let's get some lats just to make sure we can feel everything before we go put intentional load across those tissue fibers. So scapular pull-ups, people get a little too crazy when they explain these things. For me, scap pull-up, we're not going to getting into any of the elbow bend with the pull-up, but we are going to position our hands the same. So warming up with the bands is just, you know, a good systems check to make sure my scaps have good mobility through. And then second warm-up will be, let's get some actual load through the scaps and make sure that we can actually perform a lat pull down or get into our actually upper back day or a heavy back day itself. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate. I'm gonna go all the way down and let those scaps travel across the ribs. And all I'm gonna do is just pull up, hold, back down.
So when Chris is talking about moving his scaps, we're talking about this stuff here. So you can't see it necessarily through his shirt, but he's doing movement through here, pulling his shoulder blades up and down, or letting them kind of come up. So that's what he's talking about with like the scapular motion.
So warm up 3 for me is I'm gonna do a lat pull down. So to bring some more awareness to my own body, some proprioception, bring a little bit of the sense of agency to the workout itself. So if we're gonna do some rack pulls or any sort of deadlift or any sort of back movement, I wanna be able to feel my lats. So I'm gonna wake them up a little bit. Here.
And the purpose of a machine is to stay locked in the machine. So we shouldn't have any wiggle.
I'll lower that down a little bit. Get some more range.
So like Chris was saying, like using a machine right, like he's locked in, he moved that down so he can lock himself better. He's got this pad, there's nothing there, I can't even put my finger in there, so he's not moving at all. And that's the purpose of a machine, is to not move. I think the other thing that's, you know, not really looked at with like warming up back stuff, it's like on the same lines that Chris is talking about, is like, can we move all this stuff? Because as we go into a lat pull down or any of this upper trap stuff, like this stuff has to move around. Because like all these muscles work with this thing, the scapular humeral rhythm sort of thing, but more importantly, like we have to be able to move through. So Chris is just moving this stuff around for his warm-up.
Yeah. Feels good, ready to roll. So on some of this stuff, depending on torso angle and stuff like that, it'll be dependent on where that line of pull is gonna be. So if AB wanted to scoop back, that line of pull would be more upper back. If he brings his torso more forward, kind of kicks his butt out a little bit, it'll be more lat focus. There you go.
So we're gonna do a rack pull. Bar height, typically like below the knee is where we want to set it up. Now, what we're gonna do today, usually with rack pulls, you know, there's a lot of ego lifting in it, so people just load the shit on there and they kind of stay, you know, here. They're just like, like ripping this shit. Now, the whole thing that we talked about with the scap stuff. So, what we're really going for is essentially kind of like isometric loading with it.
Okay.
But so if we're thinking about that stuff, you know, like this stuff kind of comes, you know, this way. So we want to hold kind of this throughout the whole rep. Now that's the huge challenge, is like if we set up here and I'm going to get a little bit of extension, my chest is going to come up, I'm going to kind of pull that retraction a little bit. And then as I come up, I'm going to keep it. And at the top, I'm kind of thinking like, can I squeeze every single thing in my back? Now the tricky part is on the way down, can we still hold that shit? So can we still keep the shoulder blades with that little bit of retraction, keep the chest up as we go down, and tap.
Cool.
And so just think about like from the beginning, like we're challenging from here like all the way up here. So you'll have chest up a little bit. You're gonna pull a little bit. Don't go too far though. Yeah, kind of
like
just hold
a
that.
neutral scap position.
Yep. And then as you come up, we're just gonna stay nice and intentional about keeping all this together, contracting like everything all the way up. Now the hard part is holding this as you hinge back and keeping the chest up extended. So
what about hips? You want more of a hip extension?
so yeah,
through?
hip in. Yep, hip in.
Okay.
Kind of just like
So this is
almost
top in?
extending a little bit at the top.
Okay.
Kind of like, yeah. And then as you come down, yeah, holding all that stuff, keeping the chest up. Money. So from here, I'm kind of setting up with a little bit more of this like chest up. So a lot of times people kind of, you know, deadlift or anything, it's like this, rounded, which isn't wrong, it's just different. I'm going chest up. I got a little bit of retraction in my shoulders, and I'm gonna hold that shit. I'm gonna come up tall with a little bit of that chest up, and then on my way down, I'm keeping that. So I'm not letting things go. Boom.
So I don't know if you guys can see on the video itself, but that bar path travel is real close to the shin.
Yeah.
So we don't have that bar on top of that midfoot, so we want it more towards right on top of the ankle there.
Yeah, so if we get far, this is gonna put more torque at that low back as I'm coming up this way, just further in front of me. Just like if you did an RDL and you held it out here. And it's gonna feel really fucking weird when you get to the top. So I always tell people, like when you get in, like you're touching this bar. And then as you come up and your knees go back, like it's gonna glide up, so you're not gonna run into anything. Just like that, keeping it close.
What is the ideal number of sets for a person to do?
Depends on the goal.
So there's a lot of variables in there. So it depends on who we're talking about. Chris and I would say, are at least intermediate lifters. So yeah, man, we're not advanced yet. So I would say advances, well, maybe he might be more advanced than me. I would say like 15 years, like having just like total awareness of your body and space, the loads that you're using, the intention that you can set, like he's talking about foot pressure. Like, I mean, we're talking about literally like the pressure that you put into the ground with your feet. Like that plays a role as it climbs up the chain. So like as more advanced lifters, we can use all that stuff with intention. We can use a heavier load. So like for me personally, like 2 sets is really all that my body's gonna actually be able to recover from. If I do more, I can, but I'm not gonna see, like the positive to negative is gonna be more negative if I do more, because I just can't recover from it to when I have to come back in here and work out again.
Yeah.
So I find for myself, and this again comes back to like intention, how you do the movement, because like if I get a beginner in here that's gonna use 20 pounds on each side, that's a really light load. So we can do 3 sets, we can do 4 sets and work on, you know, how we do it, and they can be fine. But if we're gonna load 200 plus pounds on here and really send it, I mean, we could honestly stop at that 1 set and be good.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on skill level. Women can typically handle more volume because the loads are lighter. So it just depends on, there's a lot of different
Yeah, I mean,
variables at play.
advanced is it's a pretty subjective statement. To me, advanced would be, you know, you could even get advanced in 5 years of lifting as long as you understand how to control your body, how to program well. You know, for me, like I don't do more than 10 minutes warming up. You know, I can come in, get a scap pull up and know my shoulder's not good, and I'll shut it down and do something else for the day. So
Yeah.
I don't know, it's pretty subjective when it comes to like advanced.
Yeah, I think it comes down to like the intention you set and how you do the movement. Because like if you get someone in here that's, let's say they've never felt their bicep or something, Like I just never feel it. And you set them up and set the intention and cue them through.
You smoked them one set.
Yeah, one set, they're like, holy fuck, like
Yeah.
my biceps are done. So like that, you know, kind of comes into play too. All right, so we just did the rack pull, which was kind of, like we said, an isometric-ish thingy for like the whole back, like erectors all the way up. We're gonna go into a row, specifically going for like this upper stuff. Now the one thing with the dumbbell row is the resistance profile isn't very good. It's pretty shitty. So when we're here like this, you know, doing our row, like this is where we're the strongest. You could put 85 pounds in my hand and I could hold it. But as soon as I start to do this thing, I just get weaker and weaker and weaker as I come up. So something I've been fucking around with is using a load that I can stay stacked this way and I can bring it all the way to the top and take that, really kind of my main focus with this first part is getting here. And so once I get to the point where I can't get here, there's still a bunch of shit left here. So I'm gonna actually go up in weight and I'm still gonna focus on that whole shoulder blade thingy moving. So I'm not just doing like a bicep thingy. I'm still trying to pull my shoulder blade width, but I'm not gonna get to the top anymore. So I'm gonna stay in this kind of range, this middle, still focusing on making my shoulder blade move until I can't even do that. And then I'm just gonna retract, which will basically exhaust the muscle from like it's shortened in mid-range to lengthened, whatever. So by the time we're done with the whole sequence all the way through, like.
You want to talk about rotation?
Yeah, so on this one specifically, I'm not rotating my torso. I'm not saying it's good or bad or better or worse or anything like that. And what I'm going for is, so we have our rib cage and the shoulder blade moves around the rib cage. So what I'm trying to do is just focus on staying stacked here, neutral if you will, and letting my shoulder blade travel like this. Because as soon as I start to do this, there's really no more length happening besides I'm just rotating and now the, you know, other things are happening. Not to say that like this is better or worse or anything, like this is just different. So we're just staying stacked here without doing this. The other thing here is like I really want to just focus on this stuff. And so sometimes when we go here, there's inertia that happens, right? So we kind of miss a little bit of that tension or load or whatever. So yeah.
Now dumbbell row with rotation is really, really good too. But that's not the intent on this one. The intent is to lengthen everything, exhaust everything without that rotation.
Right.
Up the load and then hit the bottom end of it.
Exactly. And like he said, like this isn't better or worse, or the other way isn't better or worse, it's different. So yeah, like that's the biggest message that I would like to put out in the world. Yeah, it's like, it's just different. It's a different way to do it.
Yep.
This is good as well. It's just, again, different things happening.
Yeah. People who lack thoracic rotation, yeah, do a dumbbell row with rotation. Squeeze. There you go. Just let that travel. Right there. Right there. Hit my hand. Good. Come on, hit my hand. Good. Come on, 5 more. Hit my hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 more. Hit my hand. There you go. Pull. Attaboy. So here's the kicker. When you go to any sort of bilateral movement, or sorry, unilateral movement, bilateral is the same joint doing the same movement at the same time on both sides, right? So there's a big thing that's missed when you do like dumbbell rows or anything like that, and that's rest in between each side, right? I want him to be able to recover enough to be able to perform the same intensity and the same intent with his left arm compared to his right. You see a lot of people, gym goers and stuff, go from the right arm pull to the left arm pull. There's a lot of internal stabilization going on with these dumbbell rows. So for me, and with Alex too, we're pretty strong and we can go pretty high intense. That recoverability in between right side to left side, we got to take a minute and a half to kind of come back down to earth, get our breathing back, and then perform well on the other half of the body too. So definitely a missed opportunity I see a lot.
Okay. So I did the top, and then I just worked, because you're limited by how much you can do, because like this
How you
right
feeling
here,
there?
this position ends up fatiguing and gets tired, but you still got more movement. So I just basically extended it to the point where everything was toast. I just went till the point of my end range with my shoulder blade was done. So like once I can't get to that point, it's done, unless I do like weird stuff. So wherever that rep range was,
So you don't ever count reps?
I do count reps, but like stuff like this extended set stuff for myself, I just know where like I'm done. So then I go into that next point. Now if I have a client, I might set like parameters there of like, all right, 10, 10, 10 or something like that. But that comes into play with like skill level again, tolerability, like I can do this and be okay and safe. Someone else that's newer may not be able to like take it that far and like not die at the end. Okay, so we're gonna do a chest press. This machine's nice because you can see these coming this way. So we have kind of a converging path. Not as much as I'd like it to be, but when you converge like this, you get resistance all the way through to the top versus a dumbbell. When you get to the top with a dumbbell, because that dumbbell's here, gravity's going down, you're loading straight through the joint, so there's nothing happening at the top. So in a sense, you're kind of wasting the top. So here, with this converging path, kind of comes in this way, so I have something to search for at the top, which is a nice thing with this machine.
So a smart guy once told me, shout out to the Prescript crew, but you know, the shoulder is the most unstable joint in the body, right? It just hangs there. So before we even think about pressing, we think about setting those shoulders properly, right? So if you don't have good thoracic spine extension here, getting those shoulders down and back. Once I get out of this position here, if I overextend on that press, I lose that brace on that shoulder. So I always go set hands first with my clients. Here, bring that sternum handle up. So try and think about bringing that up without pushing your hips out. Hips are still on the back of the pad. So shoulders, so hands first, chest up, shoulders back and down, press through. As soon as I get to full elbow extension or just before, the press movement's done. I'm not overextending out. As soon as I go here, and I've got 5 plates on each side, all that stress is going right through that little part of that joint. So we're coming down, nice, control the movement, own it. Here, don't bottom out and lose tension, and then try and get back into it. Here, nice, smooth control, and you're gonna figure it out once you have load, where that bottom end of that press is.
You're good, you're good.
And then pressing right back through the top. So I'll overextend my shoulder to kind of give a side view. Here, right, we're not doing this.
When you get to that position too, like this stuff isn't in play anymore.
No,
like
I can still flex my pec.
Yeah.
It's
so like,
all shoulder,
like that
tricep,
right there,
maybe a little bit of lat in there.
That's what's going on.
That's what's going on. So I want to keep those shoulders set. As soon as I get here, back through control, press through. So same thing for me. I like, for presses, at least 3 warm-up sets, especially I've got a shoulder redone, rotator cuff, and I got 4 anchors in there. So I just want to make sure everything's working properly. I'm not super tight anywhere. I've got good bracing. There's nothing that feels kind of fucky with it. So everybody's going to be different with that.
You said 3 warm-up sets?
Yeah, 3 warm-up sets.
Okay, explain the warm-up set. Is that lighter weight?
Warm-up set, I start at like...
For Chris, it's lots of weight.
For me, lots of weight. I mean, I've been doing this for a decade plus intentionally.
He's a strong man.
So typical land mammal, I would put them, you know, speaking of strong mammals, I usually start about 35-40% of their 1 RM, 1 rep max, and kind of build up to there. Just make sure we don't have anything really that we can't set brace. We're not super tight anywhere. We own the movement first before we actually load up.
at 11, I think. Yeah, I've got some action items and some new stuff to go over with you. I want to.
So explain your head position and why you like it like that.
So when I'm setting up here, instead of being here, so it's this gets into the weeds a little bit, but like you've got a fan-shaped muscle. You got your sternal fibers and your clavicular fibers and whatnot, but there is a line of how those fibers go. So like when I'm sitting here, and like you said, the head position, I'm kind of almost leaning forward, so that and the way that the seat is as well plays a role, but like as I get to the top, these converge and go up a little bit. So as I'm coming up this way, the whole pec is working. You're not gonna just single out one thing, but I can kind of get a little bit more of this like clavicular fiber-ish thing, so like more upper chest. So I kind of lean. Now if I went this way, now I'd be kind of more lined here. Again, the pec's still gonna work, the whole thing, but you can kind of, in theory, bias where it goes primarily, but that's kind of where like,
it's all preference, but another consideration people need to think about, it's, what's the depth of the rib cage?
Yeah.
For Alex, he's a little bit more narrow than me, so he can get away with some of the more of the body manipulation. As for me, I like to get my shoulders back and down to really access and really feel this movement itself. So it's just really going to depend on, anatomical variances with your clients or with your partner who you're working out with. Watch them feet. Lock it in. There you go. Press. Press. Good. One more. Press. 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 Good.
oh yeah, that's it.